Claude Lorrain, traditionally just Claude in English. Why only Claude? Was a French painter, draftsman, engraver of the Baroque era. He spent most of his life in Italy. Is one of the earliest important artists, apart from his contemporaries in Dutch Golden Age painting, to concentrate on landscape painting. His landscapes are usually turned into the more prestigious genre of history paintings by the addition of a few small figures, typically representing a scene from the Bible or classical mythology. By the end of 1630s, he was established as the leading landscapist in Italy and enjoyed high prices for his work. These gradually became larger, but with fewer figures, more carefully painted, and produced at a lower rate. He wasn't generally an innovator in landscape painting, except in introducing the sun into many paintings, which had been rare before. He's now thought of as a French painter, but was born in the independent Duchy of Lorraine. Almost all his painting was done in Italy. Before the late 19th century, he was regarded as a painter of the Roman school. His patrons were also mostly Italian, but after his death, he became very popular with English collectors, and the UK retains a high proportion of his work. He was a prolific creator of drawings in pen. Very often monochrome watercolor wash, usually brown but sometimes gray. Chalk is sometimes used for underdrawing and white heightening, and various media may be employed. Much less often other colors such as pink. These fall into three very distinct groups. Firstly, there are large numbers of sketches. Things like that. He produced over 40 etchings. Engravers, right? So, painting, Seaport at Sunset, Louvre. Very different from Turner, right? He worked in Italy, right? He was under the influence of Italian painting and Roman Campagna. And like the sunrise, like this, typical, his typical work, like this, very peaceful. Right? The sky is different, right? This one, very peaceful. And like this. They are the three important artists discussed here, mainly. Let's go through the article, the essay, page 59. Constable. Actually, this essay was written to introduce an exhibition, actually. This review, entitled Constable's Weather, of an exhibition at the Tate Gallery in London, was published in the London Review of Books for 29th August 1991. Two phrases have been inserted. So this is the original essay, except two phrases. Right? I don't know which phrases. Perhaps our weather is the main ingredient in our education as well as our conversation. Very good beginning, right? Actually, he's not talking about weather. He's talking about his painting, and in his painting, the elements of weather is very important. So, good beginning. And could it not be that the origin of the Englishman's phlegm is a childhood of rackings or last-minute cancellations because of rain, of long-awaited treats? Right. You're a child. Then you are You have been waiting for the excursion, and suddenly it was canceled because of weather, right? Right. In New York came forever to disappointment. The great English painters of weather, though, did not have to submit to the weather's domination. While they recorded with closer fidelity than any painter before since, they were free to put it where they wanted it. They, meaning referring to what? Turner and Constable. Huh? Okay. Consider the genesis of Constable's full-size sketch of Hadley Castle, the work described by the selector catalogers of his panoramic exhibition at the Tate, Leslie Paris and Ian Fleming Williams, as for later generation, the very epitome of romantic landscape painting. The two work, the sketches, full-size sketch. It was the most derelict, the most desolate scene Constable ever pictured, with his ruined pair of towers set beside an endless flat expanse of land and sea and land, and with his ferociously tempestuous sky, the most violent, strident painting he ever did. It was realized in the wake of death in November 1828 of his wife, Maria, a death that devastated him. Strange, right? His wife died, and suddenly the painting turned violent. Makes sense, right? Mm. I shall never feel again as I have felt. The face of the world is totally changed to me. So, therefore, thus, his painting changed forever. He had seen Hadley Castle and made a tiny pencil drawing of it in a sketchbook while on a tour of South Essex in the company of a friend in June 1814, 2 years before his marriage. Good. So the critics talk about the sketches, right? At Hadley, he told Maria, there is ruin of a castle, which from his situation is really a fine place. It commands a view of the Kent Hills, the Nore and North Foreland, and looking many miles to sea. There is no reason to believe that he ever saw the place again, and for nearly 15 years, there was no further sign in his work of his ever having seen it. Came back to the subject, to the place. He began with a small oil sketch based on the sketchbook drawing, but adding a shepherd and his flock, right? Next development in the painting was a pen and ink drawing in which he articulated the shape of a definitive image. He brought the two towers closer to each other and put a small tree between them. Right? And with the help of another of the memoranda in the sketchbook of 1814 tour, tripled what he made visible of the width of the shores and sea, so balancing the presence of the ruined towers with that of a long stretch of poisonously dank, God-forsaken flatness. In these two versions of the image, and then in the full-size oil sketch again, in the finished exhibition painting, two versions of the sketch, full-size oil sketch, and four works, right? He repeated the precise positions of birds flying around the foreground tower in the 1814 memorandum. Whatever changes he made, the verb is the next two lines later, right? Third line, right? From there. Whatever changes he made remained immovable. Changes he made, those birds, those birds are subject. Whatever changes he made, those birds remained immovable. Interesting, right? In a landscape, towers, trees, and everything, and then shepherds, and then birds. Ephemeral, right? Birds disappear, but position of the bird stay there, remain. It's very important. You know, so those birds, which in reality were of all the incidents on the scene, the most ephemeral in their placing, remained immovable. Only in the two final oil paintings, oils, did he introduce the gulls, gulls, driven inshore, which underline the turbulence of the sky, common to all the virgins down after his wife's death. Common to all versions of painting, right? Different paintings, versions. The drawing in which had been made on the spot suggests cloudy, blowy conditions. The only time I visited the site was also in midsummer, and it was very wet and windy and overcast. So the author Sylvester he also visited this place, right? Whatever weather happened to have been found, there was irrelevant when it came to composing a picture. Feeling was what determined the weather. Key words, this is key phrase, key sentence. Feeling is what determined the weather. In the painting. In the painting, the weather in the painting. In 1834, he told a friend, "Every gleam of sunshine is blinded to me, in the art at least. Can it therefore be wondered at that I paint continuous storms? Tempest on tempest rolls. Still the darkness is majestic." We'll sometimes associate this most menacing imagery with that of Wordsworth. For instance, he sent a friend a proof of his mezzotint of Weymouth Bay. We saw the painting and misquoted it, "The sea in anger and the dismal shore." And certainly he could have said of himself, as Wordsworth did, that he had sought that beauty which, as Milton sings, hath terror in it. Drawing links and parallels between Constable and Wordsworth account one of these options of art scholars. Actually, art critics and also literary scholars make comparison in painting and poetry, right? But of course, there's no similarity between the experience of looking at a picture by the one and the reading a poem by the other, as there is perhaps between looking at a picture by Turner and reading a poem by Shelley. Wordsworth, there's difference. Wordsworth is limpid, reflective, precisely evocative of joy or panic the poet has experienced in the face of given phenomena and of the mark this has left upon him. This is what Wordsworth, what the poetry is. Compared with this, he, meaning Constable, essentially talks about the phenomena, he does not recreate their substance, does not make them immediate. He is Wordsworth. Wordsworth essentially talks about the phenomena and does not recreate their substance, and does not make them immediate. In the meantime, Constable's paintings are congested, packed with sensation, are among the most physically immediate pictures ever painted. They take us there. So different, right? Constance's paintings bring us there. Wordsworth's poetry does not take us, in a sense, it does, but it's different. Objective, right? Felt just as Wordsworth felt. Right? In the finished painting, the painting prepared for exhibition at Hadley Castle, the mouth of the stormy night. Title of the painting. So, one of the few major works missing from the Tate show. The weather is moderated and neutered, changed, right? Here, it was no longer determined by a purely personal need, but to an extent by an economic need. The finished pictures could fetch high prices. The full-size sketches had no commercial value. Some, at least, of the clientele insist that it was not enough for him to clarify detail. He also had to clarify the weather, as his uncle told him in 1811. They are tinctured darkness. So if you decide painting, it does not sell. Does not sell well in the UK and England. You have to make a very cheerful paintings as Claude did. Claude painting is very, very beautiful. Everything is in harmony. Everything is harmonized. Very beautiful. Blue sky. Actually, in the UK, it's very difficult for you to see blue sky. And ditto in Paris. But the impression in impressionist paintings, you see blue sky and beautiful clouds. No, that is not true. People like the cheerful thing in painting, right? So you are tinctured with somber darkness. So in order to sell painting, right? From the time around 1820 when Constable started making full-size or near full-size sketches for his set pieces, the weather was almost invariably improved in the course of translation from sketch to finished picture to sell, right? This seems rather immoral from a puritanical point of view, immoral, right? Immoral. We have been brought up to prefer the sketches and have not yet reacted against that preference, which is rooted in a belief in self-expression, love of the ambiguities that arise from an unfinished surface, the taste for the spontaneity and present the cheerfulness is less interesting than somber darkness. But even as we go on judging the full-size sketch of Hadley Castle to be a distinctly greater work of art than the exhibition version, we still have to ask whether it was entirely because of external pressures that Constable improved the weather. Sure, I think so, right? Could it not be that he was trying to reassure himself that painting the sketch in all this terribilita had a cathartic effect upon him? Or could it not be that there had indeed been a cathartic effect? What is certain is that he accepted with all his heart the idea that the greatest landscape paintings he knew present the form of earthly paradise, like Claude. Claude, yeah, sure. He said, the Constable said, Claude is one of his lectures given in 1830s. Claude has been deemed the most perfect landscape painter the world ever saw. And he fully merits the distinction. The characteristics of his pictures are always those of serene beauty, very calm beauty. Sweetness and amenity reign through every creation of his pencil. But his chief power consists in uniting splendor with repose, warmth with freshness, dark with light. In close landscapes, all is lovely, all amiable, all is amenity, repose, the calm sunshine of the heart. Maybe this is good, that you are going to hang a huge painting. Which painting would you prefer? The horrible dark one or bright one? Certainly this one, right? So, when Claude was surely the ideal and model for the great English landscapists as classical sculpture for the Italian Renaissance, there was an unruliness in turn and Constable. So I think I said they are forerunners of modern painters, Turner and Constable, modern painters, right? As against Wilson, say, which made them radically transform rather than imitate their model. They took Claude's composition as theaters within which to work out their personal obsessions. Turner bombarded scenes with Claude with brilliant light. Good observation, right? If you compare Claude's and Turner's painting, they basically the scene is the same, right? Same, but bombarded with brilliant light, at once decomposing and transfiguring them. Right, great. Turner made close scenes more ethereal, right? Ethereal, air-like, ethereal. Constable made them more factual. If you look at the constable paintings, you can see dogs and things like that, farmers. To the beholder and the prospect of distances, there'll be a close-up view, what's and all. It's idiom, what's and all. Everything included, including dirty things, right? What's and all. In Korean, what's samagi. If you look at something close up, you'll see the what's and everything, right? So what's and all is an idiom expression. A close-up view of a messy tangle of vegetations, natural spikes, thorns, rock dews with slime and mud and murky water. Only after the eye has traversed this organic equivalent of a ditchful of barbed wire may it enter the paradise beyond. This is Turner's painting, right? Oh, Constable's painting. The other way in which Constable's land is more factual than close is that the human action which goes on there in the open has to do with horny landed toil rather than the pursuit of love or war. So the reigning calm and order has manifestly been achieved through ages of human and equine labor, equine horses, that has kept rampageous nature, whose untidy invasiveness has been put on display in the foreground and under control. That the figures are shown performing routine daily tasks, for example, driving wagons, fishing, opening lock gates, enhances the sense of order and well-being, and intimation, the hint that things have long been going on like this, and it would be as well that they continue to do so. It is Suffolk in which Constable grew up. He was born in Suffolk, right? In which Constable grew up as son of a miller who prospered enough to live, as it were, in the style of a country squire. Nor was he unaware that his pictures were tantamount to the careless boyhood. And he could hope that the system would go on working in his favor. The husbandman, after his useful labors, said an article in the East Anglican magazine 1814, rejoiced to see his house adorned with work of fine arts. The article, admittedly, was written by a friend. Last time, the everyday world was itself an ideal world. By the time, in mid-1820s, when Constable achieved his finest depictions of it, that harmonious world had become harshly discordant. From 1821, writes Michael Rosenthal, in one of his invaluable accounts of Constable's social and ideological context, the East Anglican proletariat expressed its dissatisfaction by assembling riotously, breaking the thrashing machines it blamed for its lack of winter employment, and firing stacks and property. And nobody was more angry than Constable that the lower orders didn't welcome the hardship. But then, Constable was no realist. Proof of this is that in his big pictures of home, it's eternally summer, and around midday, it seems quite probable that the current publishers observe that Constable is best known for his sun-dappled landscapes of the English countryside is not a cynical attempt to cash in on popularity of Renoir, but a slip which occurred because the writer had noticed that the landscapes were summery, but not they were sunny. The way in which Constable made his skies was first to make them as temperamental as skies are in England, and second, to make them as dominant as they are in Suffolk through consuming so much of the field of vision. His art is celebration of the experience of that. Standing on the bank of this tower by Fairfield Mill, you can see sky everywhere around you, and the sky you see is a number of different skies, many of them threatening, and 10 minutes later, these skies have changed position and several new ones have appeared, and 10 minutes after that, they have all changed. So, very dynamic, right? And there are skies to be seen there, which are never seen in his pictures. For instance, the silver gilded sky that Tiepolo might have painted. Tiepolo, Italian painter, right? Very beautiful sky. Constable's landscape then often presented contrast between a terrestrial nature that is benign and ordered, and on a human scale, and celestial nature that is ungovernable, hostile, as well as vast. In speaking of Claude, he said that the master's chief power consists in uniting splendor with repose, warmth with freshness, dark with light. He gave himself the task in most of his major paintings of uniting, and which were far more emphatic in their opposition. I think it was through this epic duality, sky, that he achieved this avowed aim of endowing landscape painting with the moral significance and weight, which were traditionally the prerogative of history painting. Through that duality, the paintings become sermons about the antipathies between the earth, where man has some say, at least in ordaining his destiny, and the skies, where man has no control at all. They remind us that the god of sky and of phenomena was Zeus himself, and that the skies are the playgrounds of gods to be used in killing us for their sport. Or they remind us of the Christian equivalent, in which Constable believed of all that the bullying. Furthermore, the skies have the power to rule our feelings in life, leaving us to turn the tables in art. Out of those in Suffolk or Wiltshire, menacing summer skies are commonplace. On the small flat surface, there is a picture. The contrast risks producing the effect of playing the Aquapassionata during a recitation of Gray's Elegy. Thomas Gray. Claude resolves his opposition by endowing everything in the painting with the same marvelous radiance. In the sketches, Constable resolves this or more testing opposition by endowing everything with the same mysterious opaqueness, meaning painting, opaqueness, the opaqueness of a wall of oil paint. So he is different, right, from the classical painters. The contradictions are dissolved because the painting is so insistent that images aren't made of fields or trees or clouds, but of paint on canvas. Good. This is modern painting, right? Of paint on canvas, a vibrant massing of paint with the life of its own. Second foremost painting, right? Wonderful, right? For instance, where there are trees, complex surging upward movement in the paint becomes an equivalent for the process of growth. Did you see the clouds? One of the paintings, right? So, the sketch for the leaping horse is the most marvelous of them, as everybody knows. Another, which has the same miraculous combination of flickering, aliveness, and brooding gravity, so that at one moment it could call to mind the dusty of Courbet. Courbet, right? Realist painter, French painter, Courbet. At another, the dark energy of Goya, last painting. Right? One of his last paintings in which a huge monster appeared, right? Eating human, right? Goya's painting. Is the sketch of the Salisbury Cathedral from the Meadows, a work of checkered repetition, often said to be badly drawn in places where it probably is, if one is looking at the pictures, as if they were dogs and props. The magnificent finished version of the same motif was the work which Constable felt was going to be considered his greatest. Here indeed is a piece that might be rated rather than higher than in sketches, as one longs for all of them to be, in refutation of a view which has been in vogue too long. What, with the particular way in which Constable as a rainbow and uses the geometry of its arc as a fall to that of the cathedral spire, their interplay, one suspects, could have given as much pleasure to Kandinsky. Kandinsky is the first abstract painter. He did the first abstract painting. Kandinsky as that of the index fingers of God and Adam. What's that? Michelangelo, right? Sistine Chapel painting, right? The index finger of God and Adam. Nevertheless, by comparison with the sketchy transformation of the life of nature into the life of paint, wonderful, right? The life of nature into the life of paint. The exhibition picture is only wonderful theater, a Tintoretto as against Titian. Like virtually all the other finished set pieces, it doesn't begin to have the utter togetherness, the organic quality of the sketches. This seems the deepest of the reasons why it was generally necessary to temper the weather in the exhibition pieces. The characteristic duality in its extreme form couldn't be reconciled in pictures painted as these are. Instead of the opposites being harmonized through the unifying power of paint, the scene itself had to be made more harmonious. So the opposite, which couldn't be convincingly reconciled, was a contradiction between the all too evidently reverse way with which the paint was applied in realizing these pictures, and Constable's ambition that these landscapes could have the freshness and brightness of the outdoors. Moreover, the loss incurred through the finishing was not only one of painterly colorist qualities, but also loss of architectural qualities. In the sketch for the leaping horse, the series of figures across the middle distance seems to form a frieze which evokes antique reliefs as Poussin does. The finished picture loses the breadth of handling which imbues the image with the momentality that engenders those associations. It goes to show how trying to preach the Royal Academy could make an artist lose contact with the grand tradition. So in the finished paintings, these kind of things disappear, right? Perhaps there are a handful of great constables among the finished set pieces. If there are, one of them is both passing or dark, a diploma work, but by and large, this exhibition seems to me to be saying that we have been right about the superiority of these sketches, and that when the finished versions are rehabilitated, as they are bound to be, since art historians are paid for being perverse, it'll be for reasons not altogether remote from those for which Cabanel or Couture were nowadays considered presentable. And discussion over and about the exhibition. Exhibition is timely. The exhibition timely, given that 15 years ago, the Tate staged a Constable show which has been leading obliteration from the memory, a show which was a prime example of that contemporary phenomenon, the exhibitions as life-size art book. The new exhibition is very intelligently and sensitively conceived and is well presented, though I find the background color a bit tasteful. So if you go to Art Center, you'll see the walls. Walls are is with color, right? I find the background color a bit tasteful, and of course, the lighting in the suite of galleries is notoriously unfair to painterly pictures. Its computerized machinery must be invented in laboratoire. It is large and demanding exhibition. One way of dealing with that is to begin every visit with rooms 8, 9, 12. 8, 9, 12, which cover the paintings from about 1823 onwards, and then look at some other things. There are about 200 paintings and 150 drawings and mezzotints, engravings in mezzotints. At least half the paintings are uninteresting rather than historically. So the critic didn't like it, like them. At least half the paintings are uninteresting rather than historically, or for the way in which they are bad. The range of quality is very wide. It is scarcely believable, as one stands in room 3, 4, that works as nervously alive as the Weymouth Faith from the Louvre, and the intense little related sketch number 84 by the same hand at about the same time as the reviews of Dedham, Locke, and Mill, numbers 95 and 96, which are pictorial equivalents for the waxworks. They look like color reproductions. It didn't like it. Again, in the circuit of room 9, the picture which follows Hadley Castle sketch, the larger version of the Glebe farm, looks like a framed tin tray, hand painted by a local artist, right, from E. Old Tea shop. Yet again, the end wall of final room is shared by the Valley Farm and stocked by the Neyland from Chicago. And the juxtaposition demonstrates how great the artist nearing its end can produce. In the first place, something that looks utterly dead, because the catalogers put it, he's almost desperately adhering to earlier values, trying to preserve basically a naturalistic image in which he no longer has much face, obsessively polishing the life out of it, and in the other case, a picture which, while clumsy and murky and perhaps unresolved, moving, combines, as late works can do, evidence in his daring execution of sustained vitality with evidence in his feeling tone of a sense of a nearness of death. Measured as artists should be on the basis of his past, not his average performances, Constable got better and better, which is rare. So actually, not all works are good, right? The plenitude, the statement, plenitude that the painting is an old man's art is only valid when you stop and think about it. For a small minority of painters, painters are more like writers than composers, in that few of them do their greatest work in their last years. So they are different, right? And the few who do so normally reach that stage through ups and downs. Constable had his slowest start, as Kenneth Clark put it, of any painter before the time of Grandma Moses. Grandma Moses began painting at the age of almost 60. She began painting at the age, and she is one of the greatest She moved very steadily towards a peak reached around 1824 and then stayed at about that level until not long before he died at 61 in 1837. And he was pushing things further towards the end in manifestation of the late style as typical as Titian's Marcia. In the Stoke by Neyland and altogether luminous and perfect farmhouse near the water's edge. After the Phillips collection, the freedom and autonomy and the wealth of metaphor in the spun and smudged and spattered paint are reaching in the directions of Soutine and Pollack and Leon Cossot. So this is a great, one of his greatest paintings. Here is the fulfillment of the imperative which Constable had set down in 1824. It is the business of a painter not to contend with nature, but to make something out of nothing, in attempting which he must also of necessity become poetical. The catalogers in the role of Fadidadis ask, on the Phillips canvas, did he, as it were, lose rather than find himself in paint? No, he bloody didn't. Bloody, it's an English idiom, right? Bloody. He bloody didn't. Full essay, right? And he knows a lot about painting.